Mike Craven, talk me into why should I be interested in the Rice Owls?
I think they're going to be better. I think this is the most talented team that Rice has had since David Bailiff was winning 9-10 games in conference championships games. Like, their offensive line's pretty good. Their wide receivers, even though they lost Jake Bailey to transfer, are pretty good. Like, they got some real transfers in there that are going to help. They moved Luke McCaffrey over to wide receiver, and it's funny. They were talking about like, well, we thought Luke would need some time to adjust moving from quarterback to wide receiver. It's almost like his dad played wide receiver in the NFL for 12 years, right? So like that's a very athletic family. I think they're going to be fine at wide receiver. We make this joke. I think I've gotten this kind of reputation on ROF as always saying like, well, Rice's secondary is really good. Well, Rice's secondary is really good, right? Like they got a couple safeties back from injury. Gabe Taylor is an emerging star at safety. Sean Fresh, Dunbar at cornerback are really good. They're good at on the defensive line. If their linebackers that are kind of new to the program play well and they can figure out the second level, Rice's defense is going to be a top 4, top 5 defense in Conference USA. Mm-hmm. They went 4-8 last year. 2 of those losses were in overtime, right? So they're 2 overtime losses away from making a bowl game. If they can make a bowl game, if they can figure out the quarterback position, and that's going to be the bugaboo, and it has been for Mike Bloomgren's entire history at Rice. If they can figure out the quarterback position, they are a middle-of-the-road Conference USA team, and we saw UTEP last year make that jump. Like there is a separation between UTSA and UAB and the rest of the conference, but there's not much of a separation between the worst teams in the conference and UTEP, right? Like, and so they can pass La Tech. They can, Southern Miss isn't there anymore. Charlotte's not there anymore. They can be a team that reaches 6 wins. And if they do that, that's a great springboard into the American. When we were talking about North Texas earlier and now we're talking about Rice, I think both of those coaches have a lot to prove this year because moving into a new conference feels like the natural time to make a change if you're going to make a change. And so these feel like big years for Rice and North Texas because if I'm the admin, if I'm the AD, I go, okay, well, we're not performing as well as we thought we should in Conference USA. Do we carry that over to the American? That makes these years really, really important.
I think that you're right, and I think that they are, I think they're going to be more talented. I think it's a more talented roster than it was last year.
They have depth.
They have depth, yes. And if they can just get a couple of bounces to go their way, 7-5 is not a stretch for Rice. I mean, really and truly. And that would feel like we watched a lot of Rice football last year. That's a weird brag. We watched a lot of Rice football last year. I can tell that team was better than 4-8.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, Bloomgren said like halfway through the year he found his depth chart from spring, and 8 out of the 11 defenders he had starting weren't even healthy anymore. Yeah. Right? I mean, they lost 3 quarterbacks in the Texas game alone. Yeah. You know what I mean? They just had no consistency. But now I think the 2 deep is there to where like they lose a couple guys, which happens in football. They're going to be okay. And then this is going to sound really silly, but they brought in a kicker, Tim Horn, who's going to help them a lot. Like, they were atrocious.
They were real bad.
Like, to the point where they couldn't even kick field goals, right? And if you're losing multiple overtime games, to me that suggests that the margin of error is razor thin. And if you can just have a kicker, and all of a sudden, 4th and 4 on the 30 doesn't mean you got to go for it. You can take 3 points. Maybe they can be in some of those close games because, the way they play lends itself to having a bunch of close games. Yeah. Special teams becomes really important. That's the last time I ever talk about a kicker.
I love it.
Broke my own rule.
More kicker talk.
Thanks so much for watching that video. If you would like more and to be notified when they come out, go ahead and click that subscribe button right down there. You can also watch Texas Football Today every day live at noon on TexasFootball.com, Facebook, Twitch, and right here on YouTube. For more of the best coverage of Texas football in the Lone Star State, go to TexasFootball.com/subscribe.